So I have a little script that's my stuff. And because I have to, it makes it easier for me. And here's your true false thing. And then here's your talk. Now, one of the women who actually is here, I don't know where she went, but one of the women wanted a copy of it if she didn't come. So if she still wants a copy of it, can I give her my copy?
Absolutely.
Okay, and we'll just leave it there. So this is my stuff, and you can just put your stuff right there, wherever you want to put it. And Julian,
Is this going to be in
do
the
you think
way?
you could put the rug out? I think it's sitting right here on the bench. Choop, turn, turn, turn. The children's rug. Okay, that will be good. Can you do it? Just right in front. Oh, we have more kids.
Wonderful. So good.
Yeah, great.
I'll just, if you don't mind,
People are wandering in. Huh?
much time.
I don't think that's right. Where's my phone go?
Did not bring mine.
I guess I left it over here. Oh, geez, it's almost time. So what do you need? We don't have water. We're not doing it. I made that decision after. Yeah, and I'm going to announce that right away. Do you want to just twiddle for a minute before we start? And do you need a glass of water? That would be, just go straight in as you came, straight out this door and straight ahead until you get into the other big room. And people who really use, just ask them if it's good in water. That would just a glass of water. That would be great. Good. Good morning. Am I on, Glenn? Good morning. Good morning. Is it loud enough? It's not loud enough. Try now. Doesn't feel like it's even on. Better? No? Can you hear me now? Uh-oh. Did you put the, he figured it out. Yay. All right, people, here we are. I am Lori Cartier. I'm your worship associate this morning. And we have a fascinating service for you, so be ready to be well informed. I want to welcome everybody to the Unitarian Universalist Society of Bangor. If you're new or visiting this morning and you'd like to introduce yourself, I'll give you an opportunity to do that after announcements. So be ready for that in a few minutes. So blessings to everyone for Labor Day. We want to honor all those who work, all those who take the time and the financial commitment to join their union, and to ensure that all work environments are safe and enjoyable for all. So blessings to everyone for Labor Day. Okay, so I'm going to introduce our speakers. First, I'm going to introduce Jan Collins. Here she is. She's a retired high school science teacher and blueberry farmer. Jan became involved with criminal justice reform when her son was incarcerated in 2012. Since then, she has served on the Board of Visitors for Franklin County Jail, acts as MPAC's liaison with the prison branch of the NAACP, and regularly testifies before the legislature on issues related to criminal justice reform. And then we have Doug Dunbar. And Doug was born and raised in Bangor. After 30 years in public service, Doug's career ended when he went to jail for nearly 5 months in 2017 and 2018. I hope he'll be telling you more about that when he speaks in a few minutes. Doug's mission in life changed when he left jail. It's now focused on the serious problems contributing to almost all incarcerations. Those include substance abuse disorder, other mental illnesses, as well as homelessness and deep poverty. Doug founded a nonprofit called Penobscot County Cares to work on these complex challenges. And they're both here for the No Prison in Penobscot effort. Okay, thank you. Thank you. So, yay, this is going to be great. A few announcements. Number one, the book sale is September 13th. I can see the books piling up out there in the Dorothy. It's going to be another good one. If you haven't already cleared your shelves and brought books in for us to sell, please do that between now and hopefully next Sunday so it can get all set up. On October, then the yard sale is in October. We have a very important event happening on October 5th. We're bringing Antonio Hoja here to do his presentation called the Malaga Ship. There'll be a whole lot more about that coming in the next couple of weeks, but if you don't already have one of these on your refrigerator to remind you and or use the QR code to get tickets, then pick one up out in the other room. There are some spaces in the Needlepoint Felting class on September 20th if you'd like to join C. Tracy Haskell. Sure will be happening next week, September 7th. Labor Day rallies are happening tomorrow at downtown West Market Square from 10 to 11:30. So if you want to do something around that. And let me see. I thought Okay, today is Overdose Awareness Day. I'm not sure if Needle Point Sanctuary is doing something about that today or if they did it during the week this past week, but they were going to do a training, so if that might be in your order of service. Thank you, Glenn. And then, I was thinking there was something else, but if you are new or visiting and you would like to introduce yourself, I will have someone bring you a microphone. Do I have a volunteer to bring a microphone? And just raise your hand and I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself. Nobody today? Oh, we do have one, Phyllis. The microphone's right up here. It's right, tucked right in on the, trying to make it inconspicuous. That obviously worked.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name's Ethan, he, him pronouns. I just moved to Bangor last week with my girlfriend. She's starting up her master's at UMaine now. And I'm happy to be here this morning.
Welcome. Anybody else?
Hi. I'm relatively new. I've been coming for the past, I think, like 2 Sundays. Also, this Wednesday, I'm actually starting a LGBT community support group here. I was supposed to be in your announcements, but I guess. Oh, it was? I thought it was supposed to be in the announcements. That's
Excellent.
my bad. But I would love to see you. It's Wednesdays, this upcoming Wednesday from 4 to 6 here. I forgot which room. But
Okay. I don't know if that information's gotten in the order of service, has
It's
it?
actually going to be down in
It's
the
in there?
RE space.
Okay, very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, downstairs.
Anybody else?
Yeah.
All right, well, welcome to everyone, including all of you Zoomies out there. I don't have my phone on. I don't know how many of you are, but I'm trusting that there's a few of you out there on Zoom. Okay. Oh, now take a deep breath. I think I need this as much as anyone. Bring yourself into the room and be prepared for a really impressive service. We'll start with Sojourner and the introit. Thank you, Sojourner. I knew there was one more thing I was going to tell you. Phyllis is going to come up and light our chalice, but we are not going to have candles of joys and concerns today just because of timing. So she is going to light the lotus candle after she lights the, or maybe you could just do that first. And that's going to be just for all of those joys and sorrows that we're holding close in our hearts and that are not unspoken today. So we will definitely have candles next week. Yes, and so we have a chalice lighting to read in unison. May the light of truth illumine our minds. May the spark of love set our hearts on fire. May the flame of freedom burn brightly within us, now and always. Blessed be. So our opening hymn this morning is number 205, Amazing Grace. Please stand. All right, now, am I on? For all of those who are young and young at heart, please come forward to the rug, and Jan is going to have a story for us. The pictures will be on the screen, so everyone should be able to see well, and she will be reading along. Thank you, Phyllis. Phyllis is filling in. All right, you young at hearters, get out there. We lost our kids. Okay. So we haven't tested that lapel mic. Is it on? Say testing. Thank you. I'm sure we can make that work. What's happening with it, Glenn? We can't hear her. Oh, it might not be. The little black box needs to be turned on. What a concept. It's got a little circle and a line. Ta-da.
How's that?
All right.
Can you hear now?
Okay, great.
Okay, all right. So the name of the story is Milo Imagines the World. And I think all of us do this at some time, so you will relate to Milo. Is it too close? Okay. The story is by Matt de la Pina. What begins as a slow, distant glow grows and grows into a tired train that clatters down the tracks. A cool rush of wind quiets into a screech of steel, and when the doors slide open, Milo slips aboard. The train bucks back into motion as he and his sister squeeze into bench seats. The whiskered man beside Milo has a face of concentration. A businessman has a blank, lonely face. The wedding-dressed woman near the far door has a face made out of light, while the dog peeking out of her handbag has no face at all, just a long, lolling tongue. These mostly Sunday subway rides are never ending. And as usual, Milo is a shook-up soda. Excitement stacked on top of worry, on top of confusion, on top of love. To keep himself from bursting, he studies the faces around him and makes pictures of their lives. At a downtown local stop, the whiskered man folds his crossword and hurries off the train. Milo imagines him trudging through brown mounds of slush. It's a 5-flight climb to his cluttered apartment, where he's greeted by mewling cats and burrowing rats. Parakeets tweet songs of longing as the man sips tepid soup, hunched over a game of solitaire. Late that night, the door to the parakeet cage mysteriously falls open, and the cats gather on the cold sill to watch the birds fly free above the city. Milo tugs his sister's sleeve and holds up his picture, but even when she turns to look, he can tell she doesn't see. She's a shook-up soda can herself. A boy in a suit boards the train with his dad. His hair is a perfect part, and there's not a single scuff on his bright white shoes. Milo imagines the clop, clop, clop of the horse-drawn carriage that will carry him to his castle. Imagine the clink, clink, clink of the guards lowering the drawbridge. Across the human-made moat, the boy is met by a butler, 2 maids, and a gourmet chef offering crust-free sandwiches. Milo flips to a fresh page at a bustling Midtown stop when the wedding dress woman strides off the train. A band of street performers launches into "Here Comes the Bride," and everyone on the platform stops and cheers. Milo imagines the grand cathedral ceremony where the couple will be pronounced husband and wife, imagines the groom whisking his new bride to an awaiting hot air balloon where the pilot loads them in with blankets and blasts the heat, and up they go, hand in hand, beyond the concrete walls of the city into the infinite blue. Milo holds up this picture too, but his sister shoos him away. Can't you see? I'm playing a game. He watches her thumbs hang around her smudged screen, bang around her smudged screen, then turns back to the boy in the suit. They lock eyes for a few long seconds, and suddenly it feels like the walls are closing in on Milo. The spell is broken when a crew of breakers bounds onto the train, announcing, "You all ready for a show?" Several curious faces look up as the beat drops, and now the girls are walking up walls. They're whirligig around poles. They're backflipping over shopping bags. When the train pulls into the next stop, they collect a few dollars and scramble for another car. Milo imagines them going from train to train, doing their act as everyone watches. But even after the performances are over, faces still follow their every move when they walk down the electronics aisle at the department store, when they cross into the fancy neighborhood. Milo doesn't really like this picture, so he puts away his pad and turns to his reflection in the window. What do people imagine about his face? Can they see him reciting his volcano poem to the class? Can they hear his mom's soothing voice reading him a bedtime book over the phone? Can they smell the chili Colorado bubbling in a pot in his aunt's apartment near the cemetery? Butterflies flood Milo's stomach when it's finally their stop. He follows his sister into the cold station platform and up the stairs. Above ground, he's surprised to see the boy in the suit a few paces ahead. He's even more surprised when the boy joins the long line to pass through the metal detector. Milo's sister suddenly bends to give him a hug. "I didn't mean to snap at you," she says. She takes his hand, adding, "You have your picture ready?" He nods, feeling the warmth of her fingers. As they slowly shuffle forward, Milo studies the boy in the suit, his dad rubbing his thin shoulders, and a thought occurs to him. Maybe you can't really know anyone just by looking at their face. Milo tries to reimagine all the pictures he made on the train. Maybe he could have done it like this instead. The man with the beard sitting down with his family at a table. The bride with another bride. The doorman greeting the breakdancers. Milo's chest fills with excitement when he spots his mom through the crowd. His sister rushes to give her a hug before pulling Milo in too. And it's this tight triangle of familiar arms that makes him feel most alive. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was a sweet little story. Now is the time for our offering, and we are going to quickly pass the plates. All of the undesignated money received this morning, half of it will go to our food service program. That is what we have been doing in August. And so thank you very much in advance for your generosity. Thank you so much for your generosity. I have a quick reading this morning. It's a prayer written by William Sinkford. He was a former UU Association president. Only begun. Spirit of life and love, dear God of all nations, there is so much work to do. We have only begun to imagine justice and mercy. Help us hold fast to our vision of what can be. May we see the hope in our history and find the courage and the voice to work for that constant rebirth of freedom and justice. That is our dream. Amen, and blessed be. So, Sojourner will play some special music, and then Jan and Doug will have a few minutes to talk. Did I tell you we're having a Q&A at the end? We're having a Q&A at the end. Okay.
I totally agree. That deserves applause. That was amazing. So lucky to have such a great pianist here. Someone who can translate the word transformation for all of us. Thank you for inviting me to your house of worship and into your lives. The topic of my message is transformation. Before I begin, I would like each of us to take just a moment to reflect on our own transformation. You may have changed slowly or as the result of an event, often a trial by fire or a time of great suffering. As a result of that tribulation, you became a different person. Try to recall how you were before and how you changed. How did your thinking change? I chose Amazing Grace as our first hymn because of its tale of transformation. The song was written in 1772 by a former captain of a slave ship, John Newton, who, by his own words, labeled his young life as depraved, filled with greed, violence, and debauchery. On March the 2nd, 1748, at age 22, his ship, the Greyhound, was caught in a violent storm and was about to sink. He watched shipmates wash overboard. When he took the helm, he began to pray for God's mercy. He remained at the ship's wheel for 11 hours while his crew attempted to staunch leaks in the hull. Gradually, the storm eased and the ship survived. He began changes to his life immediately, but they were gradual. He left his life aboard ship in 1754, began studying Hebrew, Greek scripture and the ministry. He was ordained in the Church of England and was appointed to a church in Olney, England, where he wrote Amazing Grace for a Sunday service to complement his scriptural reading of 1 Chronicles, in which King David looks back on his life and asks, "Who am I that God has brought me here?" Amazing Grace is about redemption, the joy of receiving God's grace even when you have done terrible things. John Newton wrote the song at age 47. He had already been a pastor for 18 years, yet he reflected daily on his previous life of wretchedness and the path before him. But how do we get from a life of complacency to one of transformation? I decided to Google it. Although Google is a fount of information, it is lacking in wisdom. According to several articles, you can achieve transformation in 7 easy steps, or 6, or 5, depending on which one you consult. If you follow 7 steps to transformation, how to radically change your life, you must, number 1, identify your goals. Number 2, visualize your future. 3, create an action plan. 4, take small steps. 5, overcome challenges. 6, celebrate success. And 7, live a transformed life. Sounds simple. Certainly, some of those steps apply to John Newton's life. Take small steps, overcome challenges, live a transformed life. But there are essential ingredients missing in this recipe. I have found that transformation chooses us, not the other way around. John Newton did not choose to be in a life-threatening storm or to watch his shipmate be washed overboard, never to be seen again. When faced with this and his crew's mortality, he became keenly aware of his own powerlessness and the fragility of life. That awareness and the pain that accompanied it provided an opening, a hole for grace to slip in. The process of transformation is as much about giving up things that no longer serve us as it is about learning new things. It can be extremely painful to give up those things, those beliefs that may have insulated us from pain or given us great comfort. A person seeking sobriety must give up the comfort of addiction, a good friend that protected them from deep pain. When we give up racism or sexism, we must give up the comfort of believing that we are somehow superior to those around us, and instead accept the humanity of others. I spent most of the first decades of my life believing that I could erase the pain of my early childhood and my father's incarceration by being a great student and a hard worker. I avoided people who were troubled or troublemakers. When my husband and I adopted 3 children ages 7, 8, and 9 from foster care, we truly believed that our love could make up for the years of abuse they had suffered in their biological home and the trauma of being in five foster homes in 5 years. But at age 21, my son was arrested for a terrible crime and sentenced to 20 years in prison. I felt like I was on a sinking ship. That experience opened up a hole in me, a terrible pain that allowed for grace to step in. I stopped running, stopped building protective walls. I learned several lessons. Good people can do terrible things. John Newton could participate in the violent, inhumane, and heartless slave trade. My son could commit a violent crime. 2, the answer to violence is not more violence, and the answer to inhumanity is not more inhumanity. It is love. 3, we are all capable of transformation. We are all capable of redemption. 4, an environment of support and nurturance encourages transformation. A trauma-filled environment stifles it. John Newton found his support in the friends he found in the church and in slavery's abolition. I in the community of folks affected by incarceration. In his transformation, John Newton eventually became instrumental in the fight to end slavery in England, a fight that was achieved just months before his death. For my part, I am fighting to end our system of mass incarceration in Maine and the US. I recognize that it does more harm than good, that it is a war against the poor, the sick, and the Black, and that it perpetuates the very harms that John Newton saw in slavery. The parallels are uncanny. Both an enslaved person and an incarcerated person lose everything, including their family. The state may take their children and give them to someone else. Others will lose family members to death, never having the opportunity to say goodbye. In prison, you are expected to work for free or next to nothing. Your clothing will be of the poorest quality, as will your food and your medical care. Punishment will be your daily lot, with very little support for real change in your life. It is no wonder so few succeed upon release, and almost 700 individuals have died in Maine in the last 10 years while on probation. Just as abolition of slavery was the cause of the 19th century abolition of the carceral system should be the cause of this century. The 13th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution ended slavery in the United States, except for those who are incarcerated. Now it is time to end incarceration. I would ask you to join me in recognizing that fight. We heal in community, not in isolation. In closing, it is not enough for us to believe in our own ability to transform, our own redemption. We must also believe in the transformation and redemption of others. Thank you for believing in the humanity of those in prison and their ability to change. Please join me in making the abolition of prisons a reality. It's not an easy task, but it is a just one that our faith demands of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. And next time I should speak before Jan, because it's a tough act to follow. But thank you for letting us be here. Jan had prepared remarks. She's the teacher. I'm just going to speak extemporaneously. Is that the word? And first, Sojourner, thank you. This reminds me that the 8 years of piano lessons that I took here in Bangor, I should have stuck with. That would have been a good move. But can you hear me? Okay, I can project as well as anyone. I went to John Baptist and I was in a few plays and we didn't have microphones, so we had to project. So if you can't hear me, let me know. So thank you, Sojourner, for the beautiful music, and thank you all for being here. And next time I'll try to go before Jan because she is a tough act to follow. Why am I here? I'm here because the transformation that occurred in my life took place over here, not far, in a building called Penobscot County Jail. I grew up on Maple Street. I was born in St. Joseph's Hospital. I grew up wanting to help people. My mother was always helping someone. We went to St. John's Catholic Church, and whether in church or in the community, she was always helping someone. And I was either blessed or cursed with that kind of ethic. Wanted to help people. And I took an interest, because of my mother, in government and politics. I live not far from the Baldacci family, if you've been around Bangor long enough. Joe Baldacci is the current state senator. I got involved in political campaigns in high school and college. It led to a 30-year career in government. I was congressman and then Governor John Baldacci's press secretary, his communications person. I was Maine's chief deputy secretary of state. I worked for Senator Mitchell in the Senate. I've worked in the legislature and other places. And during those 30 years, I thought I knew something about our criminal legal system. I had friends who were judges, friends who were lawmakers who made laws around crime. But not until I ended up in that building over here did I realize how little I knew. And I tell people today I have two great regrets in life. Number one, that I drove drunk hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of times. I put all of your lives and all of your family members in danger. Fortunately, I never had an accident, fortunately. But that's one great regret. The other great regret is that, again, I spent 30 years in government where I might have had a chance to do something about a system that I didn't pay enough attention to until it was personal. So I grew up in Bangor, as I said, interested in government politics, got involved in campaigns, led to really a wonderful career in many ways. But I also grew up in Bangor with 2 mental illnesses, obsessive compulsive disorder and anxiety. And I knew that I was the crazy kid, and I'm using these words intentionally. I knew I was the crazy kid and couldn't ask for help. It was the 1970s, the 1980s, and we didn't do that. We're still reluctant today. We're a little better in terms of asking for help, not so much for men, but we're better, but not then. And so I kept it very private. Eventually my family came to realize that Douglas, my father's name is Doug, so they called me Douglas. Douglas probably has a little of that OCD thing, but it was never discussed. I wouldn't talk about it. So I just kept it to myself. And I managed my way through life. It was tormenting. I somehow graduated from John Baptist, Holy Cross College in Worcester, Mass, got a master's degree in Orono. I don't know how I did any of that because I read very little. Reading was tormenting because it might take me 10 minutes to read this page because I might read it over and over and over again. OCD is fascinating. I won't go into it. Rationally, you know that the world probably isn't going to end if you don't repeat certain actions, but you feel like you must. If you want to Google and study OCD, it is fascinating. But it was tormenting. But I just managed until 9/11. Very soon, it'll be the 24th anniversary of the attacks of 9/11. And I don't know where you were, but I was on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., and I lived very near the Pentagon. And my OCD and anxiety went completely out of control. I could barely move. I literally could barely take a step without feeling like, oh, I got to back up and take that step again. I'd be driving down roadways in Washington, D.C., and have to pull over and back my car up and drive forward again, repeat that action. Or I felt like something terrible was going to happen. For 3 days and 3 nights, I watched smoke billow out of the Pentagon. The plane crashed. For 3 days and 3 nights, smoke came out of that building. And my OCD, as I said, and anxiety spiraled out of control. And I began drinking. I began self-medicating with alcohol. I've never liked the taste of alcohol. Never. But it was my medicine because I couldn't get help for my mental illness. And so for 16 years, I moved back to Maine. I was the governor's press secretary. I was deputy secretary of state and other things. I drank more and more and more, very privately. So for all those years, people still didn't know that I was suffering from mental illness. I was the face of mental illness. I was the face of substance use disorder. I was the face of an alcoholic. And then, no one found out about my first 5 arrests. I was arrested 5 times, mostly in southern Maine. No one knew. I kept that secret. But on my 6th arrest, I went to jail for 4.5 months. It was the most interesting experience of my life. And again, I realized how little I know and how little I knew about our criminal legal system. I don't call it a criminal justice system anymore because there's so little justice for so many parties in our system, including the victims of crime. And I could tell you stories about that. But I thought to myself while in jail, if I get out, or when I get out, I knew I would get out, if I could get my alcohol use disorder under control, I had to do something about this system. It's not making you safer. It's not making the people who end up in Penobscot County Jail healthier. It's doing just the opposite, as Jan has said. And we'll have time for questions and answers because there's going to be a proposal on the ballot for you and others who live in Penobscot County to allocate perhaps $100 million to build a new building. Not for more services, not for treatment, for a building. We can talk about that. But today, you know, I'm nearly 8 years in recovery from alcohol use disorder, and my 6 minutes are up. I just got a tap on the back. So we can talk more about that. But 8 years in recovery, not because of jail, but because of the treatment that I received in the community after I left jail. And we can talk more about that. And so I do want to end by saying that today is Overdose Awareness Day, International Overdose Awareness Day. Penobscot County, unlike almost every other county in Maine, deaths this year are rising over last year. We've got enormous problems in Bangor and Penobscot County. Maybe we can talk about those as well. But under joys and sorrow, I'll end with this. My nephew was revived 8 different occasions, he believes, by naloxone. He suffered from opioid use disorder. Today, He's with my father, who's 90. He's staying with my father while I'm here. Nick just graduated from college. He has an apartment, he has a relationship, he has 2 dogs, he has a new truck. I'm not a vehicle person, but he is. He has a totally different life today. He was revived 8 times. He would have been dead 8 different occasions because of his opiate use disorder. But today, he's alive. My first roommate in jail, Chris Smith, I'll never forget Chris. He's dead today because of an overdose, because he would go in and out of jail and never get help. In and out of jail, never get help. I'll end with that. Thanks.
Oh, they have so much to share. We're going to skip the final hymn, and I'm going to ask Phyllis to come forward so we can extinguish our chalice. Then I am going to ask all of you to stay for a presentation that they have and questions and answers that they can give you. Let me see, we have a nice chalice extinguishing, but so we extinguish our chalice this morning, but not the light of hope, the light of truth, and the light of service that we can do for our community. Blessed be. Now, please just hang in there. We're coming down. We're going to use the handheld mic, and there's going to be a further presentation.
Questions? Should. All right.
So we have I guess I could talk into this. Another handheld. Can you hear me? So we are going to show this presentation. They're going to briefly go through it. Would you like questions while you're talking, or would you like to wait? So if you have a question, raise your hand. I, or maybe Phyllis, because I'm so weird on my feet today, will we can bring this around too, or you could talk into this. So Jan and Doug will be available to answer any questions that you have. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do this for, what time is it actually? We're going to do this for about 10 minutes. Is that enough time? 15? And then we're going to go into the Dorothy for fellowship. And then what I encourage you all to do is get a little something, sit down at the table with Jan and Doug, and further continue the conversation. Jan has a fascinating true-false fact sheet that you're going to want to have an opportunity to talk about. So I will turn it over to you and let you go.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here. I have some concerns about the way we talk about prisons and jails. And I was comforted and really buoyed up by the American Public Health Association, who came out saying that mass incarceration is a public health crisis. And the more and more I read, the more and more I understand that that is really what it's about. In the 80s, we started diverting money from public health, from public housing, from education into incarceration. More policing, more police, more prisons. We had a huge spending spree in which we spent billions and billions of dollars on incarcerating people instead of treating them. The ACLU of Maine, in conjunction with some other organizations, has put together a really wonderful booklet talking about how much more expensive it is to incarcerate someone than it is to actually treat their substance use disorder. Sheriffs have agreed with this. In fact, Sheriff Joel Mary of Saginaw County has said, look, I can put someone in my jail overnight for $120. I can put them in a recovery bed for $100. They won't get any treatment in my jail, but they will in a recovery bed. And he urged the legislature to actually put more money into those kinds of services so people would not end up in jail. Once you're in jail, as I mentioned, there's a cascade effect. Your whole life falls apart. You lose your housing. You lose your automobile because you can't make payments. You lose your family and you get sicker. Those are not good for our community. Our community becomes weaker when that happens. When people can't get the resources they need, all of us suffer as a community. Slide. The other major thing that I found when I started doing research is that the mass incarceration wave that we saw, that increased the number of people who are incarcerated in our country by 700% since 1980, had an overwhelming impact on people of color. It seems that people of color were targeted for this process, and their numbers increased 6 times more than the increase in people of, white disposition. And Maine is not exempt from this. Maine has the 9th highest rate of disproportionate incarceration of people of color. Next. We incarcerate the poor. There's lots of reasons for that, but poor people are much more likely to end up in prison than people who have resources. The biggest reason for that is, one, they can afford bail. We continue to charge people for holding them in prison. If you have money for bail, you can get out. And guess what else? You can get a really good lawyer with that money. When I ask people inside in the prison to raise their hand if they paid for their own attorney, in a room of 40 people, 2 people raised their hand. Next. We also find that whatever happened to you in childhood has a huge impact on whether or not you're going to end up in prison or jail. So if you had a lot of trauma in your life, we're going to put you in a place of huge trauma. So we're going to take you, if you've been physically abused, emotionally abused, sexually abused, you have domestic violence, your parents had mental illness, there was a suicide or death in your family, you're already really traumatized. Jails and prisons are traumatic places. It's not going to be good for you. Next. So if you had 4 ACEs or more, your chance of being incarcerated is 20 times greater. 20 times greater. Not double, not triple, not quadrupled, 20 times greater. You're also 30 times more likely to die from suicide. Next. To our shame, if you have a disability, you are much more likely to be incarcerated. Cognitive disabilities like Down syndrome, autism, dementia, intellectual disabilities, and learning disorders are among the most commonly reported. You are 4 times more likely to go to jail if you have a disability. Next. Sadly, there are now 10 times more individuals with serious mental illness, and that's a term that's defined, in prisons and jails than there are in mental hospitals. 10 times more likely to be in prisons and jails than in a mental hospital. Now there's a lot of background for that, a lot of history about what has happened to mental hospitals in our state, like we closed the one at AMHI for good reasons, but when we closed it, we didn't put mental health resources in our community to meet the needs of those people who were being discharged from AMHI. And across the state of Maine, we have not enough mental health resources in any community, anywhere, but in particular in rural Maine. Next, when someone goes to prison or jail, their whole family goes to prison or jail. When my father went to prison, we became homeless. He was our only income. I ended up with my family in this little plywood trailer that my uncles used to pull around to county fairs. There were 2 wooden bunk beds, no water, no plumbing. My sister and I were tucked in on either end of the top bunk, and my mother shared the bottom bunk with my 2 brothers who were infants. We were all under the age of 5. And my sister started school at the end of a long dirt road in rural Maine because that's where we were at that time. It has huge effects on children. They're twice as likely to develop learning disabilities, anxiety, or depression. Have a parent incarcerated is a stressful, traumatic experience that has the same magnitude as abuse or divorce or death. Next. It doesn't just affect the people who are incarcerated, it also affects the people who incarcerate them. Corrections officers have the same health consequences of the people that they oversee within the jail or prison. They have high rates of suicide, they have PTSD, they divorce at high rates, they have shortened lifespans. All of these things are the same as the people who are incarcerated. It's a very traumatic environment. It doesn't serve anyone. Next. These are the things that the American Public Health Association said that we should be doing immediately. Reduce the incarcerated population. Most of the people, I can say this without question, most of the people who are incarcerated have a health condition that would be better served in a health setting. But we continue to put them in prisons and jails where they will receive minimal, if any, services. 2, divest from carceral systems and instead invest in the societal determinants of health. That is, health care. We know that if you don't have health insurance, you are 7 times more likely to go to jail or prison than someone who does have health care, because they can get their health needs met. You can't. Housing. We know if you're unhoused, you are much more likely to end up in jail or prison. But if we have housing, if we take care of housing needs, we'll have less people in jail or prison. And employment. If you have a job and a job skill, you are much less likely to go to jail or prison. That's where we should be putting our money. 3, commit to non-carceral measures for accountability, safety, and well-being. Again, you can hold people accountable without having them spend incredibly long sentences. We have an aging prison population around this country, because we have such long sentences. If people rehabilitate themselves, they do more good in the community than they can ever do, taking up resources, $120,000 per inmate per year at Maine State Prison. If that money, I always say this, so nobody's going to propose this as a bill, and don't consider this as, but if instead of spending $120,000 putting someone in prison, that we use that money to support them and their family and require them to do community service, to get counseling, to get care for their substance use disorder, that would be so much better than spending it on a prison.
Am I on? Yeah. I have a question about the need for people who can give the counseling and the mental health services, that we don't have enough of those people in the Bangor area to serve the needs of the people who aren't in prison. What are you recommending that we do to get people to come so that we can give them these services that they need instead of just putting them in jail?
So Doug might be able to answer this better than me, but
Jump up anytime, Doug, if you have.
yeah. Do you want to say that?
Yeah, use the microphone.
Yeah, I don't think I need a microphone.
You do, because we can't hear you on Zoom.
Oh, Zoom.
Yeah.
Where are you, Zoom? You're everywhere.
There's the camera.
All right. Well, hello, Zoom. You're right. We have a deficiency in the number of clinicians. I used to work, by the way, the reason I'm here today is because I got treatment. I left jail to be in, by the way, if I had gotten out of jail the way I was treated, the way people are treated in most of our jails, many of our jails, I would have gone right back to drinking. And I might have killed your family and your nephew and your sister. But I got treatment through something called the Penobscot County Adult Treatment Court. It's one of the positive aspects, in my view, of our system, but it's for a very few number of people, so I got treatment. And Wellspring is an organization, substance use and mental health treatment provider, Wellspring, here in Bangor. I went to work for Wellspring after I was in recovery for a while. So you're right, we have a deficiency. However, again, if we were not spending $12 million a year, every year, to run our jail, if we could reduce that amount, we could invest in bringing more clinicians to Bangor. And by the way, there's more help out there than people realize. Wellspring right now has almost no wait list for mental health treatment. They do sometimes on the substance use disorder side, but they have regular mental health clinicians. You could walk into Wellspring today and get some help very soon. We have a detox center in Hamden. It's never full. Sometimes we hear that you can't find a detox bed. Not in Penobscot County. We've got two, one by Wabanaki, run by Wabanaki Public Health and Wellness, the other by Wellspring, and they're never full. So you're right, we need more clinicians, but we could address that if we were not devoting so much money to a system that fails us. Just two other quick points. Number one, please don't believe from Washington, our current administration, or anyone else that dangerous crimes, that violent crime, or crime itself is skyrocketing. It's not. In Penobscot County and in the state of Maine, the last 10, 12 years, every year, less crime, less crime, less crime, less crime, less crime. And don't let anyone tell you that we don't have room in our jail, because it is always full, but don't believe them when they say that we need a bigger building. We don't. Let me give you an example. COVID arrived in this part of Maine in March of 2020. I was in that building in 2017 and 2018. In March of 2020, COVID arrived, and there were about 200 people stuffed into that building each day. Capacity is 157. There are 157 beds. They would have 200 people. Sometimes when I was there, it was over 200. And it's a madhouse when there's over 200 people. COVID arrived. 6 weeks later, there were 110 people in that building because we didn't arrest as many people and because we let some people out. And you know what didn't happen? Crime didn't go up. There wasn't a crime wave. 110 people in that building, not 200. When you have 110 people in that building, you've got plenty of room for treatment. You've got plenty of space for AA meetings and NA meetings. You've got plenty of room for private clinical counseling, the things they tell you they don't have room for in that building. They don't have room for it in that building because we stuff too many people in there. Every year that crime has been going down. So I don't know that we're here necessarily to talk about what will be on the ballot, but probably next year you'll be asked, do you want to build a bigger jail? And that building's old. I was in it. It's old. It's ugly. But we've also come to believe, and this is really important, we've come to believe somehow that people are supposed to be in jail for months and months and months or years. That was never the purpose of a jail. You would go there very briefly.
Question.
I'll end. You would go there very briefly until your court case came up or until you were bailed out. So that you'll be asked to spend tens of millions, maybe 100 million or more on a new building. And not a penny of that money, is for services or clinicians or treatment. It's just for bars and bricks and barbed wire. And that is the truth.
So it's 11:15. So we are going to have Sue ask her question, and then I'm going to ask you to kind of wrap things up a little bit so we can go in the other room. I think it can be a continuing, fascinating conversation. If you want that to happen in here, that's great. But we do have refreshments if anybody's hungry. So
Lori told us we had them until
let me-
5 in the
let me,
afternoon. I'm kidding.
Let me have Sue ask her question.
How does restorative justice play into all this?
Did you understand that?
How does restorative justice tie into all this?
Restorative justice, she's asking about.
That's a great question, because one of the things that Doug mentioned before was that the victims rarely feel like the system has treated them well. And for those of you who don't know much about restorative justice, it is victim-led. So the victim gets to say what they need to feel like they're whole again. And so in that process, and it's usually it's not a short process, it's a long-term process. It doesn't happen overnight, but there are people who meet with the victim, first of all, to ask them if they want to go through the process of restorative justice. There are people who meet with the person who committed the harm to see if they're ready to go through the process, because it's much harder process than going to jail, because you have to face the person that you harmed. You have to face what you did to them, and then you have to make it right. Restorative justice has been used in Maine, in the Mid-Coast area primarily, to work with youth, and it has been incredibly successful in those communities that have it. The youth have something like a single digit, might be 7%, recidivism rate if they go through restorative justice. If they go to Long Creek, which is our only youth prison in Maine, they have a 70% chance of recidivating. Victims feel better about the process when they go through restorative justice than they do when they go through the court system, because the court system is, and I'll tell you this from my perspective as a victim, because I was assaulted and went through the court system before I knew anything about restorative justice. I felt like the system used me to get their conviction. And when the person was convicted, there was nothing for me. I didn't get any counseling. I didn't get any assistance. Nobody asked me what I needed. Nothing. So victims often feel like they were not heard in the process, and do not feel like they were healed in the process. And many of them carry that anger for a very long time. So restorative justice, we would love to see it expanded so that victims can feel heard, so victims can feel healed, and so that we reduce the number of people who are going to repeat crimes.
Uusb, thank you, thank you. This is so fascinating. We could go on for 3 more hours, I think, if we had the time. So what I think we'll do now is we're going to sing our benediction and close the service, and then we're going to have everybody go in and continue the conversation.